Yeah, it takes a lot of time. Normally, it should have started by this time.
It started, sir. It
Yes,
started recording.
recording has started.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for joining this session. This is a 12-week session on sustainable engineering. We are with the first session. This 12-week session is conforming to the syllabus of the APJK Technological University. And most of the teachers who have joined here and most of the students who have joined here are from the APJK Technological University, which we call in short KTU. And of course, the PPTs will conform to the syllabus of the subject by the university, but I'll be talking something more at many times based on my experience, based on my knowledge, and based on heuristics. Things may come in between, and it will all get recorded, which you can use later. Now let us see the next slide.
So hope
The
it's visible to
university is
all.
having this particular objective. If it is not visible to anybody, please put in the chat box. So it is visible to all. The objective of this course is to inculcate in students an awareness of environmental issues and the global initiatives towards attaining sustainability. And there are so many course outcomes. These are now very popular in the pedagogical circles. What is CO, what is PO, what is PSO, etc. CO stands for course outcomes, and every course should have 3 to 6 outcomes. Here the university has defined the 5 outcomes which are required. The 5 outcomes are: first, to understand the relevance and the concept of sustainability and the global initiatives. And second one is to explain the different types of environmental pollution problems and their sustainable solutions. And the third one is to discuss the environmental regulations and standards. And the fourth one is to outline the concepts related to conventional and non-conventional energy, that is mostly on energy. And the fifth one is demonstrate the broad perspective of sustainable practices by utilizing engineering knowledge and principle. So this will be the broad outline of discussion of my subject. Actually, this subject was first introduced in that university in 2015, and myself and Dr. R.V.G. Menon have contributed much to the syllabus formation of this subject. And after that, it has undergone many changes, and ultimately, it has come up to a new syllabus right now in 2019. That syllabus is available on the website of the university. And if anybody wants that syllabus to be sent, you can just put in the chat box. I'll arrange to post it again. But it's available on the university site. Anybody can access it. Under the academics pull down menu, you can get it. Now the next slide. This is a very famous definition, the global definition. This definition was formed by the Brundtland Commission appointed by the United Nations in the 80s. I think this definition came out in 1987. What is sustainable development? This is a global definition which everybody can keep in mind. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I used to tell a very simple example to my students when explaining this term. Suppose you have got a hen at home, a hen which is giving daily an egg. A very special guest is coming to your home. You can treat the guest in 2 ways, by either by culling the hen and giving a chicken fry or chicken broast, or by taking its eggs and giving an omelette or bullseye. The first one may be more attractive for the day. Culling the chicken and giving the meat will be very attractive for a day. But the second one, taking the egg and giving some egg products, may not be as attractive as the first one, but in the long run, it is sustainable. This is the concept of sustaining. That is, without killing the mother earth, without killing the hen, without killing the cow, we can give resources, we can give eggs, we can give milk, which can sustain our livelihood. This is the basic concept of sustainability. So with this concept, we will move further. Next slide, please. The sustainable development has got two concerns. The economic development is there and the social development is there. If you cannot use any resource, suppose there is a hen, you get one egg every day. You say that let the hen reproduce a chicken every day, so you are not going to use the egg also. That means you are very much sustainable, but then you are not economically viable. You cannot get any income from it. You cannot get any survival from it. So using the egg is a middle way. So it is one way helping the economic development. Many households in Kerala used to depend only on the egg they produce in the early days. Now it would have changed a bit. So economic development also has to be there. So we cannot go to sustainability to the extreme thing. Say, for example, having forest everywhere is the most sustainable thing. But can we have it? We should have our own occupation land where we can make our habitat, where we can stay ourselves. So we cannot say, let there be forest everywhere in the world. So sustainability has got a limit to growth. That is there. But economic development has to be a part of it. So middle way is most of the time acceptable for us. Let us see the next slide. One slide you missed in between. Okay.
No, sir. This is it. Next one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. This is it. That I removed later. That's why I forgot that I removed. Okay. This is our problem. What is the problem? People. You would have heard the most famous Malthusian theory. Abraham Malthus was an economist. You would have heard the theory which says that the resources increase only in arithmetic progression, whereas the population multiplies in geometric progression. For example, when the resources increase in the proportion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the population increases 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 like that. This is a very dangerous phenomenon which we are seeing in the world for a long time. Obviously, just before the Industrial Revolution started, when the Malthusian theory came up, many of the economists all over the world suggested or propagated that we are going to starve and die. But when the mechanization came, we could produce things beyond our requirement, excessive production could happen, and we could survive. That means by science and technology, we have overtaken the limitations of the nature. But still, this is a problem. How much it is a problem? Let us see the next slide. This is the rising urban population. In this, India, this is only urban, not total. Total population will be, for example, in India, now the urban population and rural population are equal. Around 63 crores each, India right now. This is 2020. In the graph you see, 2020, it is less than 60, but now we have crossed 63 crores urban population. It is more than this graph. This graph was prepared before 2020, some years back. And see, in 2065, we were supposed to overtake China in urban population. But now the prediction is different. Now the prediction is that in 2035, we may overtake China. So we are going to be the most populated country in the world by around 2035, 2040. People with the richest country in human resource. This graph also is going to be changed by the progression of growth in our country. Okay. So this is our problem now. We have got a lot of people. We have to feed them. We have to clothe them. We have to domicile them. And we don't have resources for that. Say a very simple case in Kerala, we have got nearly 330 lakhs of people. And the entire land available in Kerala is only 3,80,000, 83,000 square kilometers. And if you remove all the forest and rivers and waterlogged areas and all, the per capita occupation land available in Kerala is only 8.33 cents per head. See, so small. So resources are always limited. That's why Gandhiji has said, nature has got everything for man's needs, but not for his greed. We are all greedy. We want resources for more comfort. Okay, next slide, please. This is another problem. Earth is warming up. Last 2 years, we had some heavier rain here in Kerala. Because of the heavy elashes, we would have thought that Earth is cooling down. No, that's only a casual occurrence. Earth is heating up. See the graph? In the next, by the end of this century, compared to the beginning of the century, Earth will have a temperature difference of 4 degree more average. These different curves are estimates by different international agencies. The agency's name is given on the left of that graph, and the graph shows the prediction by that agency. Let us take the average. The average is around 4, means a place which was having a temperature of 40 degree in the beginning of the century will have 44 degree at the end of the century. See, I am talking from Palakkad, where the highest temperature last year used to be 42 degree. If this graph prediction is correct by the international agencies, we may have around 45 to 46 degrees centigrade by the end of this century. Even now, 42 is unbearable. Just imagine when 46 it comes to. This is another fate we have got, which we call very fondly as global warming. It is not warming really, it is heating now. Warming is something, warm temperature is something we can withstand, but hot temperature is something we cannot withstand. And from the warming side, we are going to the heating side right now. Next slide, please. What's the role of engineers in sustainable development? Why we are teaching sustainable engineering? There are roles for economists, there are roles for planners, there are roles for biodiversity experts, but engineers also have a major role. They are the nation builders. They are the builders of science and technology. They are the builders of entire epitomes in the world. So engineers have got a more responsibility than anybody else because they are basically the builders of the civilization. They have to optimize economic returns. Then only the country can have development and GDP growth. They should protect the environment. It's the duty of the engineers to protect the environment. You know that environmental engineering is a branch of civil engineering where they study how to protect the environment, how to keep everything in correct position. And we also have to see, we build the society, we have to see how the human needs, and of course I told needs and greeds are different. At least the needs have to be satisfied, and how the quality of life, see how the quality of life has changed. Till I was the age of 23, I couldn't see a TV in Kerala. Till I was the age of 42, I couldn't see a mobile in Kerala. And now we are dependent on TVs, we are dependent on mobiles, we are dependent on laptops, and the way of life has changed. Who has changed it? Definitely engineers. We cry about electronic waste, e-waste, but who causes it? We only cause it. We make it, we use it, and then we lament over it. This is happening everywhere. Next one, please. So what is basically sustainable engineering in a nutshell? Sustainable engineering integrates technical and non-technical issues. Yes, some issues may be technical, some issues may be traditional, some issues may be sentimental, some issues may be out of jealousy, so many issues may come up. But the engineer's role is to have a compromise between all these issues such that the human life, the human civilization is kept moving forward. And we have to strive to solve the problems for indefinite future. The first definition I told that preserving everything for the future generation is the role of this generation. Tomorrow your children, your grandchildren should not say that you spoiled our earth, you spoiled our culture, you misused our resources. We have to keep it for them. And then we should have a global context for everything. If one finger in your hand is growing, there is something wrong with it. Every fingers have to grow together. That's only balance. So we need a balanced growth. We cannot say that only industrialized nations should grow. The developing nations are not supposed to grow. That is the policy adopted by many of the developed nations right now. When it comes to the exhaust of carbon, which is called the carbon emission, they say that the countries have to control, but they are not ready to control. So there comes a clash of interest in all these things. Then sustainable engineering design should be there. A design which we have now started with what is called frugal design. Frugal design means a design which encompasses the minimum utilization of the resource of the nature. So by resorting to frugal design, you are saving a lot of resources in this on this earth. But safety, function, cost, all these are, and the impact on the planet and the impact on the people, their daily life, all these are concerns for the engineer in their development activities and engineering activities. Now come to the next one. I want you to see a video. It's a bit lengthy video, but very informative video. This has been prepared by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and I'll display this video. You should listen to it. After it, I'll ask some questions. You have to give your answers in chat box.
Can you all see the video? So can you see the video? Okay.
Yes, we can see. Please proceed.
Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Devisha. I'm a faculty at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Today we are going to cover the module on sustainable development from the paper Environment and Society. Basically, the module introduces the concept of sustainable development, the history of sustainable development, and the developments that has happened till now. The key discussions for today's class would be on the introduction to sustainable development, history of the concept, how sustainable development is portrayed, sustainability in different spheres of development, Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. Let's start with the introduction of sustainable development. Now, the concept of sustainable development is a result of growing awareness of the global links between mounting environmental problems, socio-economic issues to do with poverty and inequality, and concerns about a healthy future for humanity. The concept has been widely discussed and has a variety of meanings per se. It is accepted by corporate, governments, social activists and environmental activists, and each has their own interpretation on what sustainable development means. More than 100 of the world's largest companies in mining industries, oil and gas refineries, manufacturers of autos, chemical, cement, electricity generation, drugs and biotechnology services such as banking and finance are all members of the Business World Council for Sustainable Development. That is the first aspect which covers a corporate body. Now, many environmental protection organizations, including multinational organizations like WWF, that is the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Greenpeace, etc., are committed to sustainable development. Although they are very critical about the companies who are members of the WBCSD that we had discussed earlier. Organizations and individuals with concerns about environmental and social issues do support sustainable development, but disagree with the outlook of international economic organizations. Let's start with the history of this concept, that is sustainable development. So to motivate countries to work and pursue sustainable development collectively, UN established the Brundtland Commission in 1983. The Brundtland Commission released a report which is known as the Our Common Future, also known as the Brundtland Report, in October 1987, a document which coined and defined the term, meaning of the term, that is a sustainable development. Now, the definition that Brundtland Commission gave to sustainable development is that the environment is where we live, and the development is what we all do in attempting to improve our lot within that abode. Now, these two are inseparable, is what the definition speaks about. Sustainable development is the kind of development that meets the needs of without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Now let's talk about two main concepts in sustainable development. There are two key concepts. One is the concept of need, and the other is the idea of limitations. Now let's look at the concept of need. The concept of need is in particular the essential needs of the world's poor people is what covers as a concept of need. Now, to which they should also be given overriding priority. The second aspect is the idea of limitations, which is imposed by the state of technology and social organizations on the environment's ability to meet both present and future needs. So Brundtland's definition and the ideas expressed recognize the dependency of humans on environment to meet needs as well-being, and well-being is in a much wider sense than merely exploiting nature per se or just resources per se. So ecology and economy are becoming ever more interwoven, that is locally, regionally, globally, nationally, any sphere you say, it is getting interwoven. The report stresses that humanity, whether in an industrialized or a rural subsistence society, depends for security and basic existence on the environment, the economy, and our well-being now and in the future will also need the support of environment per se. Now let's come to the topic on portrayal of sustainable development. Now sustainable development is often presented as being divided into the economy, the government and society. Now the three sectors are being presented as three interconnected rings, and the model has a conceptual simplicity basically. So often sustainable development is presented as aiming to bring the three together in a balanced way, reconciling conflicts per se. Here you can see the three rings that I was talking about, which is the environment, society and economy. This is the first one way of presenting the three aspects or the relationship between society, economy and environment. Now the weaknesses and limitations of this model that we have discussed is that the view that there is a separation and even autonomy of the society, economy and environment from each other takes a compartmentalized approach to sustainable development. The separation neglects the connections between the economy, society and environment. It leads to an assumption that building capital can replace or substitute for natural resources and systems, and completely ignores the fact that any amount of afforestation or plantations cannot substitute a forest. Genetic engineering cannot replace biodiversity, and there is no technology that can reconstruct the atmosphere or the ozone layer. So a sectoral approach can divert attention from asking questions that are important to getting to the core of sustainable development, such as those about the nature of our society, what the policy priorities are and how decisions are made and in whose interest. The wider social issues often fall off the sustainable development agenda per se. So environmental economists discuss about the environmental impacts of business such as pollution, biodiversity loss and degradation of habitats. These are all unpaid costs or externalities per se. In such cases, how can the corporate pay for the loss that that they have made, and who should they pay these costs to? It is impossible to imagine money compensating an organism or humans for loss of habitat on which they depend. There are many social costs that business cannot pay for, such as unemployment or a loss of culture or damage to health, or as I was explaining, a loss of forest or plantation wherein biodiversity is lost. So to cover all this, another frame that we would talk about is a more realistic presentation of the relationship between society, economy and environment. The economy nested within society, which in turn is nested within the environment per se. So human society depends on environment, although in contrast, the environment would continue without society. The economy depends on society, and the environment actually exists without the economy. The effect of pretending that the economy and society are each a unified whole is to ignore diversity and difference, and instead gives a precedence to the dominant parts. So here you can see that economy, then comes the society, and within the environment frame, both the economy and society is existed. So that, as discussed, there's a problematic space with respect to having economy and society within the environment frame. The third model that we can see is the environment and biodiversity as an important part of human sustainability per se. So the changes in science and technology, art and culture are stimulated by environmental diversity. Vandana Shiva, a noted environmentalist, points to how global capitalism exploits all form of diversity for profit. Sadly, it risks destroying that very diversity with dangerous consequence for people and the environment. So here, the presentation of relationship between society, economy, and environment is thus. Within the environment, we have the human activity and well-being, which is stored within the environment realm. So what we explained earlier, the needs in particular with the world's poor, is something that is not seen in the current scenario. So sustainable development basically strives to provide the priority, the overriding priority to the needs of the poor per se. The next aspect is the idea of limitations, which is imposed by the state of technology and social organizations on the environment's ability to meet both present and future needs. This is something that we explained just previously. What I would want to explain here is that the future needs and the present needs also includes the environment that we are part of. So whatever we consume this at present may not be present in the future if we overconsume it. So again, the sustainability aspect of development is reiterated in this aspect of key concepts that we have already discussed. We've discussed about the relationship between the economy, environment, and society. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is the principles of sustainable development. Hutton in 1999 outlines 5 equity principles. So I'm going to explain each of these 5 equity principles. The first one is futurity. This is basically the intergenerational equity. The next one he talks about is the social justice. That basically is nothing but intra-generational equity. The third principle that we would be discussing is the transfrontier responsibility, which basically is the geographical equity. The next one is the procedural equity, which is basically people treated openly and fairly. And the final principle is the interspecies equity, because basically it is the importance of biodiversity. So these principles can be summarized as futurity, to give regard for the future of needs of future generations; equity, covering social justice regardless of class, gender, race, etc., or where they live, and participation, participate so that people are able to shape their own futures. Now we will move on to different spheres of development that sustainable development per se, which is the first one we will be discussing is on the agriculture. Now sustainable agriculture consists of environment friendly methods of farming, for example organic farming, that allow the production of good and food and rearing of livestock without damage to human or natural habitats. Now it prevents damaging effects of fertilizers, pesticides and weedicides onto soil, water, biodiversity, as well as on human working or living on the farm or in neighboring areas. Now, the concept of sustainable agriculture includes transfer of improved natural resources, biotic and economic base rather than one which has been depleted or polluted. New ideas of sustainable agriculture include permaculture, agroforestry, mixed farming, multiple cropping, and crop rotation. Many methods of certification, sustainability standards exist, which includes organic certification, fair wild certification, etc. These certifications help a consumer to choose products which have been manufactured following the principles of sustainable development. So, one very good example of sustainable agriculture is the Pokali farming in Kerala. It is seen in the wetland ecosystem, the coastal ecosystem, wetland ecosystem in Kerala, where they have cyclical fish prawn cultivation per se. So here they do not use any fertilizers or pesticides. They go by 6 months for agriculture and 6 months for fish prawn cultivation. This is a very natural form of agriculture and fish prawn cultivation that was carried out for many years in Kerala. So sustainable agriculture is also another example would be farmers, the subsistence farmers in Wayanad or any other tribal belt who do not use any other external factors for productivity per se. These are subsistence form of agriculture, but productivity can also be enhanced by, say, crop rotation, a crop pattern, changing crop patterns along, considering the monsoons or considering the rainfall, considering the sunlight that they receive, etc. So these are already followed and it has to be promoted per se. The next area that we are going to cover is energy. Sustainable energy is clean and can be given over a long period of time. Unlike fossil fuels that most countries are using, renewable energy also produces little or no, even no pollution. In India, renewable energy, hydroelectric, solar and wind energy are being promoted. Solar energy has recently become available very easily. For example, TIS has solar energy which basically gives electricity to most of the hostels that we have. Another example would be the solar panels that are installed in the Cochin airport, the Cochin International Airport. Now, mining for non-renewable resources, sources of energy, fossil fuels, have a direct impact on environment, and as far as environment is concerned, people are a part of it and it impacts us as well. Several communities in Orissa, Chhattisgarh and Northeast India has protested against mining in their regions. Toxicants from coal, nuclear power plants, refineries has threatened health of local communities. So as renewable energy becomes more common, it will provide better social equity to communities. The next area that we are going to cover is the technology. A core concept in sustainable development is that innovative technology can assist humans to meet their developmental needs, and such technology is often referred to as an appropriate technology. This has been an ideological movement originally articulated as intermediate technology by the economist E.F. Schumacher. In his influential work, Small is Beautiful, and today covers a wide range of technologies. Both Schumacher and many modern day proponents of appropriate technology also emphasize the technology as human-centered. So, one example of technology that is used as sustainable technology is solar panels that are used, solar parks that are promoted by Government of India. And also windmills, for example, Tamil Nadu, in Coimbatore especially, they have a lot of windmills that promote sustainable energy, wherein we do not have to use non-renewable resources like coal and hydroelectricity power, and we focus on renewable resources like sunlight and wind. Now we will be covering the aspect which is business. the most broadly accepted criterion for corporate sustainability constitutes a firm's efficient use of natural capital. This eco-efficiency is usually calculated as the economic value added by a firm in relation to its aggregated ecological impact. This idea has been promoted by World Business Council for Sustainable Development, as they are part of that organization. The mainstream environmental groups such as Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, WWF are largely in the reform group and increasingly has moved towards grassroots activism, and mass protest has been made and even to political lobbying and working with business and government per se. We have covered so far the different spheres of the sustainable development, which includes agriculture, energy, technology, etc. Now we will be covering the Millennium Development Goals. In 2000, after a decade of United Nations conferences and summits, world leaders came together at the United Nations headquarters in New York and adopted the United Nations Millennium Declaration. So the declaration committed nations to have a new global partnership to reduce extreme poverty and set out a series of 8 time-bound targets with a deadline of 2015 that has become known as the Millennium Development Goals. Now, what are the Millennium Development Goals? We'll go one by one. The first Millennium Development Goal is to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. The second one is to achieve universal primary education, followed by to promote gender equality and empower women. This is followed by the next Millennium Development Goal, which is to reduce child mortality, followed by improve maternal health, combat HIV, AIDS, malaria and other diseases, ensure environmental sustainability, and to develop a global partnership for development. So Millennium Development Goals were indicators that established measurable, universal agreed objectives for preventing deadly diseases, dealing with extreme poverty and hunger, and expanding primary education to all children as development priorities. The legacy and achievements of the Millennium Development Goals per se provide us with valuable lessons and experiences to begin work on the new goals. So the Sustainable Development Goals are an urgent call to shift the world onto a more sustainable path. Now we would be basically covering on the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals were formulated at the UN Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio in 2017. In September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly formally adopted the Universal Integrated and Transformative 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And it is a set of 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The objective was to produce a set of universal goals that meet the urgent environmental, political and economic challenges faced by our world today. The goals are to be implemented and achieved in every country from the year 2016 to 2030. These 17 goals build on the achievements of the Millennium Development Goals and replace them includes new areas such as climate change, economic inequality, innovation, sustainable consumption, peace and justice, among other priorities. The goals are interconnected. The success of one goal depends on the other. The Sustainable Development Goals coincided with another historic agreement reached in 2015 at the COP21 Paris Climate Conference. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Climate Resolutions and the Sustainable Development Goals provide a set of common standards and achievable targets to reduce carbon emissions, achievable targets to manage the risk of climate change and also natural disasters, and to have a better comeback after a crisis. Now, Sustainable Development Goals are cover issues that affect all humans and even environment, and is a very important aspect that one needs to look into. The discussion so far, we have completed what sustainable development is, We've also looked into various spheres of sustainable development, the key concept behind sustainable development, the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. Now for further enhanced reading, I would suggest you to look into e-text and the ePathshala section for resources in that. And I hope that you have enjoyed today's class. Thank you.
Hope all of you heard this well. Now I am coming to the active part of it. We have got nearly 184 participants here. I'll be asking you some questions. Please put the answer in the chat box. You don't have to say it. You can just put in the chat box. My questions will be very simple. I just wanted to know how you understood this lesson, this session, which was provided by one of the most distinguished institution in India, the Tata Institute. My questions will be very simple. Irrespective of whether you are a teacher or a student, you can put your answer in the chat box. I'll say whether it is right or wrong. If it is right only, I'll say. If it is wrong, I will not comment. Don't worry about that. My first question is, what is the popular name for Brundtland report? Or what is the most popular name for Brundtland report? Please put in the chat box. Or what is the other name? Yes. Minnu and Muhammad, Bawa, Shimi Lawrence, Sabirish, all have put our common future. Our common future. That's the name for the Ashwin Raj. So many are coming. Okay. Okay. I thank you. Now I think since I have told it, you need not put further. I'll tell who are the people who have given answer. Neha R, Jemshia Salim, Rajida, Niranjan, Harsha, Anjana. I think you can stop now because I already told the answer. Then Varsha, Santosh, Jijit, Shruti, so many. Srilakshmi M. Nair, Adira Krishnan, Arya RK, Selman, Aparna Diju, Sabiri Shah. All the people have answered well. Prince Vijay. Okay. Now my next question is, you are responding well. I cannot open up the volume because it will be huge interference. Better chat like this. My next question is, what are the three pillars of sustainability? What are the three pillars of sustainability? Please put it in the chat box. Nobody has put it? Nobody has put it? The three pillars of sustainability. Please put in the chat box.
So there are so many answers in the chat box.
Correct answers, sir.
Oh, chat box, I'm not. Okay, it has come now. It has come. Chat box, it has come. I was waiting. Maybe
Yes.
it was a bit slow. Let me see. Yes. Environment, society, again environment. No, environment, society, economy. Environment, society, or economy, social, environment. Okay, most of them are correct. I think some people committed some slight mistakes. Some words are repeated. So many names are there. How can I read all these things? Senani Suresh, Anuvinda Vandanam, Rahil Roshan, Soumya M, Jamila A.A., Srikumar Nedumburathu, Vaishnavi V, Giri Prasad, Arunjit A.R., Basil Shaji, Agash R, Adira Krishnan, Archana R, Ishya Selim, Tejas S, Arubak CM, Varsha Santosh, Arya R, Ashwin Sivadasan, Arjun Prasad, Naushadali VT, Ashwari MM, Pramod Krishna, Shibin, Vinci, Srijitra, Sanjay Sanchu, Shrija DS, Salman Salu, Neha R, Sharat R, Only those who have put full I am reading. Akshaya Ashokan. Some people have put only one. They didn't put the full. Niranjan A. Ashwin P. Srilakshmi N. Nair. Sahira Shweta S. Krishnendu Sadish. Sindhu V. Okay, it's a good collection. I think I have read as much possible. Let me ask the next question now. Next question is, who proposed the equity principles? Who proposed the equity principles? Who proposed the equity principles? No, the equity principle is not Brundtland. Many are writing Brundtland. Wrong. Brundtland, yes. Savita Stanley put it rightly. Houghton. Yes. Aparna also. Aparna, did you Houghton? Houghton proposed the equity principles. You are right. Houghton. Now so many are writing. Now it's better stop. After I say the answer, better don't write. Many have written now. I'm not going to read everyone. Over a dozen people have written now. Now my next question is, be very careful. What do you understand by organic farming? What do you understand by organic farming? Yes, zero fertilizers, not using chemical fertilizers, farming by environment-friendly methods. Yes, so many. Yes, most of them are correct. So I think now you can stop it. So many have come. Yes, again coming. I think reading it will take a lot of time. My name. I think you can see the names in your chat box. See the people who have posted it. Most of them have posted correctly. It is environment friendly. It is nature friendly. It is without using chemical fertilizers. Don't say without using fertilizers. Biofertilizers can be used. Some people have written without using fertilizers. No, biofertilizers are being used, but chemical fertilizers, pesticides, etc., are avoided. That is it. Okay. Okay, let me come to the next question. So many names are there. I'll read some of the names. Ashwin, Keshia, Anjana, Kiran, Vaishnavi, Adityan, Neha, uh, Adira Krishnan, Varsha Santosh, Sri Lakshmi M. Nair, Giri Prasad, Jamila A. Sri Hari, Harsha P. Rohit Bibin, Vishnu Lambos, Arjun Prasad, Inmol Tom, Sindhu V, Yasser Arafat, Savida Stanley, Veena Sajikumar, Akash R, Aparna Diju, Tejas S, Muhammad Bawa, Naushad Ali VT. Yes, so many are there. All are correct. Now my next question, I think better I'll stop with this question because the more questions I'll ask, our time will be very restricted. Next question is, when was the Paris Convention? When was the Paris Convention on sustainability? Which year? Yes, so many have written it. 2015, yes. Some have gone to 2016 or 17, but most of you have written 2015. Thank you, thank you. So many. Yes. Who started with 2015? I'll say the first few. First one is Mary Sunida, Aparna Diju, Shimi Lawrence. Oh, Shimi Lawrence mistaken. Arsha P, Arjun Prasad, Sona C, Akshaya Ashogan, Ashwin U, Arya R, Giri Prasad, Kiran Kumar, etc., etc. I think questions I'll stop by this. I tested this to see whether you listened properly. It was a 27 minutes video. Out of all the videos I checked, that was the most comprehensive and prepared by the government. MHRD has published it. That is why I have given it. Now, Bindu, please come up with the PPT again.
Sure, sir. I'll do
Please
it now.
present the PPT.
Sure. So hope you can see that.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, chat is coming. Yes. Okay, that is regarding, they can see it. Yes. We are all seeing it. As I told in the beginning, to make our interaction a bit effective, we will have some interesting interactions also in between. This is the first exercise which I am giving. And it is not a tedious one, it's a very funny one. You all know that in Malayalam calendar, our birthday is associated with a star. For example, I was born in the star Kartiga. In Tamil, you call it as Kritika because some Tamil Nadu participants are also here. So all of you have a star. And that star, we call it is associated with a planet, Navagraha. But all the planets in the Navagraha are not just planets; they are also stars sometimes. And for each star, suppose you are born in a particular star, whether it is Ashwati, Bharani, Kartika, Rohini. As per the Malayalam calendar, you have a plant in your name, a plant which belongs to your. For example, my plant is Atti. You would have heard sometimes Atti, Itti, Arayal. They are three types of banyan trees. So my plant is Atti. Similarly, that star will be associated with an animal. That star will be again associated with a bird. That means this plant, this animal, this bird. And in Hindu religion, there is a deity also. There is a god or goddess associated with that star. These are all assigned. These are, if anybody do not know this, you can find it from the internet. You just give the Malayalam calendar and star. You can find, just give your date of birth, exact date of birth. You will get all these things. Similarly, you have a neighborhood. You have a neighborhood, so many plants are there, so many animals are there, so many insects are there. And you have a microclimate. You have a house where maybe nearby a waterfall may be there, or a peculiar cold catch area may be there, or a river may be flowing around you, which controls your microclimate. So each of our houses have got a microclimate, which is decided by the things around it. And you have your own food habits. Food habits means some people like certain particular vegetables, particular meat, and you have some flora and fauna around you. The type of plants, you like some plants, you dislike some plants. These are all ways in which you attach to the nature. I'm going to give it as a very simple exercise. Take the first five, your star, your plant, your animal, your bird, and your deity. Your deity is optional because it's a Hindu belief system. If you are not a Hindu, you will not have a deity associated with your star. Only the Hindus believe in that deity association. But the other one, it's not religious, it's a calendar thing. You cannot say it is religious because loving an animal or loving a plant is not religious. So the first four you can identify from the internet if you don't know. Many people may be knowing. How many of you know what is your star, your plant, your animal, your bird, and your deity? Please post here. I just want to know how many people know their star and at least two of them, your star and your plant. Star many people will be knowing. Yes. Kartika I told, so some people are reproducing it. Come with some other. Kartika don't reproduce because I told. Veda has got the same star. Okay. So the star Kartika will have plant Ati and the animal is God. Anyway, I'm not going to that. Anybody else know? Punardam, bamboo and cat by Ashwati. Okay, good. Then baby Tessie, star Mageram, animal snake. Good. Sruthi, star Chodi, plant Nirmarudu. And Arya, Tiruvadira, palm, dog. Okay, good. Now stop chatting. Now it is an exercise for you. You have got a WhatsApp group, each category. The students and the teachers attending this program have their own WhatsApp group. We have made that group. Students in one group and the teachers in another group. Post your star there. All of you post your star there. Need not post your name or anything else. Post your star there. Then everybody with the same star should make a small group, and they should make a PPT of that star, the plant of that star, get a photograph of that plant, showing clearly how that plant will look like, the animal of that star, take a photograph. You can get the photograph from the net itself. But if you have a, say, for example, your plant is jackfruit tree, and you can take a photograph from your front yard, take it like that. Take a live photograph. And then your bird, if you can say, suppose your bird is duck, you can take the photograph. Normally the birds are wild birds. You can take a photograph and make a PPT. That PPT will be made by one group. Say for example, all the people having Ashwati as a star will get one PPT, one slide only. And all that slides we are going to show in the next week. You post all that slides in the group. Bindu or Prabha will, there are two people coordinating your program. Prabha is an assistant professor in the mathematics department of Ahilya School of Engineering and Technology, and Bindu is actually in charge of marketing in the Ahilya institutions. She is in charge of the academic marketing of Ahilya Group, but she is also teaching in the Ahilya School of Ahilya School of Engineering and Technology because she is specialized in business administration. So both these people will be combining it and will make us one presentation. We will show within 10 minutes next session. Next class we will show within 10 minutes this PPT. So this PPT is not going to be a singular effort, all with the same star. You just post your star, then you can group. One among the star make the group. Let us see who is the leader. But in that PPT, you should write the names of all the people who made it. One person can get the photograph. One person can take the photograph of a plant or a photograph of its flower, something related to it. Then another person can get the photograph of the bird, combine it and make into a single PPT. Not much. The same slide, you can have the bird, the plant, the animal, and the star, and the names of. That is enough. Okay. So that is your first exercise. It is an assignment for all, for the teachers and students. Students also have to do the same thing. We have got a good number of students here. They group themselves not by posting the star here. Now no more posting here because so many chats have come up. You better post in your WhatsApp group your star and then combine it. This is your exercise which should be sent or which should be posted in your group within 5 to 6 days, so that our teachers can combine it and then make it. That PPT can be made into a presentation of so many, say, slides. Maybe suppose 27 stars are there, 27 slides will be there. Okay. And 27 slides for the staff group and 27 slides for the student group. And we will just pass it, just showing, say, 5 seconds per slide we can show, so that within 1 minute, some how many, some 12 slides a minute. So maybe 10 minutes I can finish off that. Okay, that is your first exercise. Don't miss it. Also, please ensure that all the people with the same star. Don't worry about what is your religion or what is your faith. We are not questioning any of those things. That is why I told deity. Only those who want can add the deity. There is no compulsion because deity is basically Hindu deity. I don't know whether such deity is there in any other religion. To my knowledge, only Jews had such a concept. But whether they have defined everything, I'm not sure. In the period of the pharaohs, there used to be such a faith system, which I'm not sure. So if you have it, I think Jews may not be there in this group also. If you have such a thing, you can think of it. Okay. Now come to the next slide. We want a more vibrant world. So far, we were discussing about what are our problems, what is the concept of sustainable development, but we have to overcome all these things, and that is a basis for sustainable engineering. So now we are starting our discussion with what is to be done in sustainable engineering. Please come to the next slide. We are undergoing a tremendous climate change. I told you that by the end of this century, almost 4 degrees centigrade increase in temperature may be there. Mostly because of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. What do you mean by anthropogenic? Anthropology is the study of human beings, the origin of human beings. So anthropogenic means generated by human beings. and GHG stands for greenhouse gas. There are so many greenhouse gases. By bulk, the most prominent is carbon dioxide. By effect, most prominent may be some other gases, but by the bulk, the maximum greenhouse gas emission is basically carbon dioxide emission. And you see, there was an increase over 1970 to 2010, which was the highest in human history compared to all previous years. Say, for example, just see the next statement I have given, carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuel. We are all using fossil fuel. Petrol is fossil fuel, diesel is fossil fuel, your cooking gas is fossil fuel, and even the fire which you make at home, that's also basically from fossil fuel. And you see, the industrial processes which started in the 70s, till 70s, the industrial processes were very minimal. By 1970, that is why the environmental thoughts have stem up from 1970 by the first book, Silent Spring. Okay, now from 1970 onwards, 78% of the global emission was contributed in this 4 decades. Just see, all the people who lived and died beforehand contributed to less contribution of the carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases, whereas in the last 40 years, I am shameful to say that my generation has contributed to that hugely. About half of cumulative anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions between 1750 and 2010 have occurred in the last 40 years. And before 1750, virtually there was no anthropogenic emission. Why? Because industrialization started in the second half of 18th century, that is by around 1750. So before that, people used to make carbon dioxide only for household cooking and such things only. And the next statement you see, the direct carbon dioxide emission is too huge and it will double or triple in 2050 compared to 2010. See, if 2010 we had a million ton carbon dioxide, 2050 we are going to have 2 million or 3 million tons. That is the ratio. See, exact quantum I will give later. Okay. Next one, please. Let us see the physical science basis. I think chat box, somebody has posted something. Okay. Yeah, the answers to my previous questions only. Okay. So let us see what are the physical implications of these things. 95% certainty that human influence has been dominant cause of the absurd warming since 20th century. Nature also contributes to warming and cooling. That is there. For example, nature itself will die one day. I want everyone to be aware that this nature is not forever. It will die. Like the human beings, the nature has got a death knell. We are not sure how this earth was formed. By carbon dating, we have identified that the earth was formed 450 crores of years back, but no assurance. And the human being in our present form, we call ourselves as a species called Homo sapiens. The Homo sapiens are only 1 to 2 lakhs years old. So if you take the cosmic calendar, if we take the entire age of the cosmos, entire age of the universe as one day, 24 hours, or if we take better as cosmic calendar takes us 1 year, we take 1 year as the entire lifespan of the universe is supposed to be around 1,800 crores of years old. 1,800 crores of years old is expectation. But Earth is around 450 crores. It's almost, it is proved by carbon dating techniques. Universe age, we don't know. Also, how the universe was formed, we are not sure. There are so many theories. The cloud theory is there. The Big Bang theory is there. Rigveda starts with the concept of formation of the earth. Rigveda starts with the slogan, Nasadasina Sadasitadani Nasi Dragyono Vyoma Paroyat. Means in the beginning, sky was there, but nothing was visible. Water was there, but not visible as water. That means everything was there, but everything was invisible. This is what Rigveda says. Nowadays, the cloud theory also states like that. There was something in the universe, maybe an electron mix, maybe a charged particle plasma group, whatever it is. There was nothing, but everything was there. Maybe in that form, the universe generated 1,800 crores of years back. But in this earth, if you take 1,800 years as 1 year, the human being is only 8 minutes old. Rachel Carson has calculated that if the universe is around 1 year old, the human being is only 8 minutes old. See, we are the most newcomers on the world. That is why Waika Muhammad Bashir, in his funny story, has written, we are not the righteous owners of the righteous owners of the earth are the insects which you see, the reptiles which you see, the birds which you see, the animals which you see, because they are your forefathers on this planet. Now, from 1950s onwards, there is unprecedented change in the climates because from 18 from 1750 onwards, we have been dumping so many things into the atmosphere, and it started to manifest back. It started to retaliate by the second half of 20th century, that is by around 1950, and now we are suffering it. For example, earlier we used to say 40 degrees centigrade is a very high temperature at Palakkad. Now, last year when it came up to 42, it has broken the history, and maybe by the end of this century, it becomes 45 or 46. We say this is the highest. Like the rain, last 3 years we are getting excessive rain in Kerala. 2 years back, the once in a lifetime flood happened. Those who have studied hydrology or water resources engineering will be knowing that we expect once in a lifetime flood, maybe in a century once. But this century, it is predicted that once in a lifetime flood may occur many times. So these are all man-made disasters. Please come to the next slide. See, change in the global average temperature. The ocean surface temperature is given below. The global average temperature is seen. See how the temperature is changing. I have given the graph because graph will explain by itself. Even if you cannot read the value, and this excessive warming has started from the beginning of 20th century. Now we are in the 21st century. 2000 onwards, we are in the 21st century, but this started from the 1900s. And see that curve shows clearly how the global temperature is going up and how the sea surface temperature is going up. And the sea level has risen very much. It is observed that in the last century, the sea level has risen by 20 centimeters. And there may be somebody from Alappuzha district here. Actually, I was born in Alappuzha district. In Alappuzha district, almost 1/3 of the area is below sea level. That means the salt water can anytime, the brine water can anytime enter that area and make the soil unfertile. And this has happened many times also in history. And in the last 1 century, the seawater going up by 20 millimeters is a big implication. It's not a small thing. 2 centimeters is not a small thing as far as seawater level is concerned. Now the next slide. This is the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide in the last century. Carbon dioxide level in the beginning of the 20th century was less than 315 parts per million. We call it as ppm or milligram per liter. Normally, milligram per liter is quite common. Anyway, parts per million also you can use. It was less than 315 in the beginning of the 20th century. By the end of 20th century, in many parts of the world, it has come close to 400. This will be very high, especially if you check in Kalamassery area or some other industrialized area. For example, in Los Angeles area in America, in USA, this is very high. Los Angeles is supposed to be one of the most polluted area where acid rains do happen. And Los Angeles fog is very popular because many times in the year the fog will cover the area you cannot see even your hands. The fog will be so dense. And luckily, I feel I had a system when I was working at the NSS College of Engineering. In our environmental laboratory, we used to monitor the carbon dioxide regularly because we were doing some sponsored project by the government of Kerala. So carbon dioxide monitoring daily was done. And I was lucky that here the carbon dioxide concentration was only 330 milligram per liter. I don't know whether it has increased now. I did this monitoring from 2013 to 2017. In 2018, I retired from the college also. So in that 4 years period, I have found that the carbon dioxide level in NSS College of Engineering Palakkad was 330 plus range, not above 340 anyway. In the air, you can measure it. Now digital meters are available. You can measure the carbon dioxide concentration in the air. And it is advisable that it is restricted to the lowest because the more carbon dioxide, more pluralistic diseases you are bound to get, like pneumonia. Even the longest word in the Cambridge dictionary is the disease caused by the presence of microparticles in the atmosphere. I think Shashi Tharoor will be able to tell that. But anyway, I also remember that word, pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. This is the longest word in the dictionary, in Cambridge dictionary. It's a disease caused by the dust pollution of the atmosphere, and it is very common among the quarry workers also. Now, oceans can absorb carbon dioxide. It absorbs also. The ocean surface, you know that two-thirds of the global surface, the Earth's surface is ocean. Oceans do absorb carbon dioxide, but while absorbing carbon dioxide, it becomes carbonic acid and acidity is induced in the ocean, and ocean acidity is also increasing day by day. What happens if the ocean acidity goes beyond a tolerance limit is, now it is a habitat. See, more living organisms are in the water than on the land. I don't know whether you are aware of it. All over the world, if you take, the more number of living organisms are in water. And life also originated in water. So, the water acidity may put in peril the life of many organisms which are living in water. And 30% of the emitted man-made carbon dioxide are causing ocean acidification by absorption there. That means almost one-third of the carbon dioxide is being, you should not say that I am producing carbon dioxide here, why it goes to the ocean. See, the earth is so turbulent. The earth is rotating around its own axis. Plus it is moving highly at a speed of 30 kilometers per second. It is moving around the sun. And the atmosphere of the earth is so turbulent that people funnily used to say, the air which Jesus Christ has breathed 2020 years back may be still by you. It's possible because air is so turbulent. Now, next slide, please. Now, this slide I have given, I'm not going to each and every one. This slide gives the trends in greenhouse gas emissions by different human activities. All the activities, I think it will be difficult for you to see one by one. See the activities one by one. Anyway, record will be sent to you. All these activities, the greenhouse gas emission are related to that, and of course, mostly carbon dioxide. You know that almost 99% of the greenhouse gases produced on the Earth's surface is carbon dioxide because human activities are mostly connected to carbon dioxide. The other gases like methane, it's there, then chlorofluorocarbon are there, but they are all very limited, not like carbon dioxide in abundance. Next slide, please. What will happen at the end of 21st century? That is what is given here. It is very likely that the length, frequency, and intensity of warm spells or heat waves will increase over most of the land areas. We used to have heat waves and warm spells, but that will be very frequent now compared to so far. Then, in some scenario, a 1 in 20-year hottest day may become 1 in 2-year event. This may be for hottest day and rainy day. For example, Wayanad, Tirunelli in Wayanad is the place where the highest rainfall in India has occurred. When I was a student, we used to study the highest rainfall was Cherrapunji in Assam. Now Cherrapunji is not in Assam. I think it is now in Meghalaya or Mizoram. I think it is in Meghalaya. Now Cherrapunji is there. But except for a day, all other days the highest rain was in Cherrapunji. All other years also. But once Tirunelli broke the record. Now that 1 in 20 year or 1 in 40 year record may change. Now the warmest day, the hottest day, the heat wave day, and similarly the most precipitation day. Precipitation means rainfall. It's a technical term used for rainfall. Rainfall in hydrology is called as precipitation. So even the highest precipitation day may be once in 2 years, like that. It can change. Whereas throughout my lifespan up to say 40 years, Cherrapunji was holding number one. Then only Tirunelli took over it. But now it will be taken over by within a year or so. It may be taken over by some other record. It's possible. Next one, please. Water scarcity is there, and it is bound to increase. Obviously, you will be surprised to listen that Kerala is getting much less rainfall from Rajasthan compared to Rajasthan. Can you believe it? Yes, it is true. The average rainfall in Kerala is much less than that in Rajasthan. But what is the difference in Rajasthan? Rajasthan, in some places, the rainfall is very heavy. Some places, the rainfall is very less. So, scattering or spatial distribution of the rainfall is less. But Kerala is such a place, the spatial distribution of rainfall is somewhat even. Say, for example, my college, the Ahilya School of Engineering and Technology, is in a place called Kodipara, which is in the rain shadow area. So there the annual rainfall, except last 2 years, may be less than 1000 millimeter, whereas the average rainfall for the entire state of Kerala may be 1800 or 200 millimeters in a year. So even there it is that much there. But in Rajasthan there are some places where the average rainfall per annum is even less than 100 millimeters. That is why we say Rajasthan has got a lot of deserts. So don't think that we are plenty in water. Keralites are lucky only from one point of view. Here the rainfall is not concentrated. We get an even distribution everywhere. That is it. So the sea level will rise, temperatures can increase, coastal intrusion that is happening now. Even Shankamukham beach has been taken away by the sea. It can increase, and the damage to coral reefs. Coral reefs are, pearls and all, which are, it's a peculiar sea organism which is found very near to the sea coast. And the sea coast intrusion may result in the coral reef being lost. Okay, next one, please. Adverse effects on sustainable development capabilities of most Asian developing countries by aggravating the pressures on natural resources. And Asian developing countries, the most important Asian developing countries are China and India. Remember, these two countries together account for almost 50%, not exactly 50%, 40% plus population of the world. If you take five people in the world, four are from India or China. That's the ratio right now. So it's a huge population. And obviously, as I told earlier, India is going to overtake China in the near future because China imposed a rule earlier that only one family, one child. Now they have relaxed it because there are no people for the army. So people are reluctant to send their single child to the army. So now they are releasing that norm. But even then, there has been a trend where the social system in China is not as democratic as in India. So their population is not going to increase much. People don't want more kids in their family. But Indians do have a basic nature of increasing the population. And let us see, maybe by 2040, we will overtake China in the human resource strength. Now, the next one. This climate change is obviously going to bring so many impacts. As I told, the population growth is going to impact us by scarcity of food, scarcity of water, scarcity of energy, scarcity of firewood. All these things are going to be there by the impact of population growth and reducing resources. But the warming, the global warming, then in some places concentrated precipitation, all these things can impose havoc on the nature. Next thing. Next slide. Yes, this is the next slide. See, Actually, who are the real sufferers? Any environmental impact, the more suffering is for the poor, not for the rich. I used to tell this simple example to many of my students. A person like me, having very good income, doesn't even spend 1% of my income for fuel, for travel, for cooking, etc., etc. But a person who gets 300, 400 rupees a day has to spend almost 25% of his income for non-effective cooking and traveling expenses. Say, for example, he may have to travel for his work, he has to cook with firewood. Even all over India, maybe Kerala is better. Only around 15 to 16% people have got access to cooking gas. What the others do? Firewood cooking. So that is why, for the average man or the marginalized person, the expense on fuel for cooking, for travel, for heating. In North India and all, heating is a very important thing because half of the year they have to keep a kiln inside their room, otherwise they cannot survive. All this take huge energy demand, and that's almost one third of their total income they have to spend on energy. Okay, next one, please. Now, this is where we have to think of sustainable technology. You can see there two lines, one with red color and one with blue color. The red color implies that if you are not using any sustainable engineering, you are using non-sustainable engineering, how much will be the GDP of your nation, gross domestic gross domestic product? That implies the living standards of the people, the income to the nation, the expenditure capacity of the nation, that is indicated by that green color line, if you are not at all sustainable. And that blue line indicates, that red line indicates non-sustainable. That blue line indicates if you are resorting to sustainable measures, how much will be the reduction in gross domestic product, the GDP, that may be imposed? See, it is very marginal. That means you can save the earth at a very less cost. That is its meaning. You can serve the earth at a very less cost, and we must save. So, for petty profit, we should not spoil the world. That is the implication of this graph. Next one, please. Now we have some targets now. These targets were fixed at the Paris Convention. By 2050, reduce the GHG emission, especially carbon dioxide emission, 40 to 70% lower than what is in 2010. Then near zero level emission in 2100. For example, in Ahilya campus, we have started a group called Zero Carbon Emission Group. All the people we are making our own wind energy. We make wind energy 3 times what we require in the entire campus. We have got windmills. Anyway, I'll show the campus, then you will understand what the campus is like. So we have made a group for zero carbon emission. What do you mean by zero carbon emission? Zero carbon emission doesn't mean that you don't produce carbon dioxide, but whatever carbon dioxide you produce, you mitigate it, you absorb it by your own activities. Say, for example, you have plant trees, you have gardens, you have water bodies. All these do absorb your carbon dioxide, and you adopt technologies like zero carbon emission transmission, zero carbon emission electric generation, uh, the electrical energy related vehicles. These are all leading to the zero carbon concept. That I'll be discussing on the zero carbon concept a bit later, because in the detailed syllabus which we are going to discuss, this is one module. There I'll tell all the energy techniques which we have to use for emission control. Then resorting to energy like nuclear energy, biomass energy, etc., and reducing the fossil energy. Fossil energy is the one causing the maximum environmental disaster. All these things which nowadays we use are fossil energy. Next slide, please. You see, carbon dioxide, how it can be reduced. You cannot avoid producing carbon dioxide. If you avoid producing carbon dioxide, you cannot eat food. Because you know that the food synthesis in the plants only can make food. You can only cook food. The manufacturing of food can be done only by plants, none by animals. So plants cook food from carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide plus water gives carbohydrate. But the catalyst required are sunlight and air, that is oxygen. And so carbon dioxide we cannot stop producing. But if the carbon dioxide you generate is somewhat equal to the carbon dioxide you absorb, then we can come to a balanced situation. That is what is called the carbon dioxide sequestration cycle, where what you produce is absorbed or utilized by your own activities. Next one, please. This I will be discussing on energy sector. I have given so many terms here that I will be discussing in detail because we have time constraint. I will be having a detailed session on energy where I will discuss all these things. Next one, please. This also, I'm not going to explain much because I have some other points to show, which is must. This also will be coming in my slides later when I explain later. This session is basically meant to introduce sustainability and the factors affecting sustainability and concept of sustainable development. Next one, please. We have to see that a stable climate is an essential factor for SD. SD stands for Sustainable Development. So, controlling the climate change is one concern. And all our designing has to be based on that. You can have sustainable design and non-sustainable design. An engineer who is concerned with the longevity of the earth should design to sustainable design concepts. And so reducing the use of resources, avoiding the use of depleting resources, using green materials instead of red materials. I'll explain these concepts later in detail. All these are options which we have got for the equitable distribution of the resources and also for limiting the uncontrolled use of resources. Next one, please. This should be your eye-opening slide. Read it yourself. I think you have read it. 1.3 billion people don't have electricity. 1.3 billion people have no electricity, or means out of that 360 million live in India. That is in India, 36 crores people don't have electricity. We have got a population of around 135 crores. In that, 36 crores means 1/4 of the Indians don't have electricity. Maybe Kerala is an exception where we have electricity everywhere, except in some inaccessible areas. 2.2 billion liters of kerosene is burned each year. You know, billion is how much? Billion. This is American billion, which is a million. 1,000 million is billion. In the British unit, a million is a billion. But this is American system where a billion is 1,000 million. About 5.5 tons of carbon dioxide emitted to the atmosphere by burning kerosene alone. And mostly kerosene is used for household lighting, where there is no electric power supply. Abdul Kalam, our honorable past president, used to say that he studied in the light of kerosene lamp. Many of our forefathers have done it. When I was in my young days, electricity was just coming to our Kerala only. Polivasal project has then been commissioned and was spreading in Kerala lately. But Kerala was one of the first states in India to have electricity distribution. Okay, now the next slide. Be careful about this statement. This is where engineers have to contribute. A technological society has two choices. First, it can wait until catastrophe failures expose systemic deficiencies, distortion, and self-deceptions. Secondly, a culture can provide social checks and balances to correct for systemic distortion prior to the catastrophic failures. This is what Mahatma Gandhi said. And whether we should wait for catastrophe to occur or not, it is our choice. The catastrophe or the total destruction can occur if we are careless, if our generation is careless. So I have seen one PPT prepared by, it was a dynamic PPT prepared by APJ Abdul Kalam. It was posted in the internet long back when he was president of India in the early 21st century when he was president of India. He posted a PPT. I checked for that PPT today. I couldn't get it. In that PPT, a person is coming onto the screen with a protective cover, like the spacewalkers, totally covered. He is having a long bottle suspended in front of him, an oxygen cylinder on the back, heavy oxygen cylinder. His nose is connected to the oxygen cylinder. He is having a long antenna coming up from his shoulder. And there are a few slides there showing one by one. In the next slide, there are so many slides. I am quoting the important slide. In one slide, this young man is saying, if my forefathers were a bit wise, I need not have carried this water bottle. There would have been at least some potable, drinkable water here around. In another slide, that young man is saying, we cannot see the face of the young man because he is in a spacesuit. In another sheet, in another template, he is saying, if my forefathers would have been a bit wise, I need not have to wear this heavy spacesuit because the temperature on this earth would have been habitable. It would not have been so hot, so that I have to be in a case. Next, that young man is saying, if my forefathers would have been a bit wise, I need not have carried this oxygen cylinder because some oxygen would have been available here around, which I could have breathed. And the last slide, which says, if my forefathers would have been a bit wise, I need not have to carry this antenna to communicate with my counterparts in the other continents. At least some human beings would have been here around. I hope you understood. This came from APJ Abdul Kalam. So that is why the next quotation from Gandhiji, speed is relevant if you are going in the wrong direction. Only if you are going in the right direction, speed has got some conscience. So heavy industrialization, heavy dependence on machines is relevant only if you feel the right path. Next one. Next slide, please. So we need sound technologies for urban water cycling. Preserving the drinking water. There is plenty of water in the continent, but only 3% is potable water. Out of that, only 4% is available to us. That means we have only 0.12% of the global water with us for drinking purpose. So this we will be discussing a lot later. Next slide. Rainwater harvesting. How to store the rainwater. Why I told this is, I'll be showing a small video of a campus, the greenest campus in the state, which is fully depending on rainwater harvesting. Next one, please. Now, this is what I just wanted to show a small video, 2 minutes video. I'll give a small explanation to this. This is the campus where I am working now, Ahilya Health Heritage and Knowledge Village. We are having 10 educational institutions in our campus, including Engineering College, even IIT Palakkad, and 4 big hospitals, the biggest heritage museum in the state. So many theme gardens, including rock garden, bamboo garden, flower gardens, all these things. It's the biggest campus in Kerala. And 20 years back, I was the first consultant to that campus. 20 years back, how the campus looked like, I'll show you. Then we made rainwater storage system. How it looks like now, I'll show you. After that, I'll show you a small video of 2 minutes duration, how the campus looks like now. So it is a best example of sustainable engineering. And I am very happy that I've been the first person to get associated with this sustainable motive. And that is why after my retirement, I have gone back to that campus. So now we will show the photographs first, and then first photograph will be the first, barren land. Only some rare coconut trees and palmyra trees were there. This is that photo. You see, this was like some bushes and it was a rain shadow area, no rains there. Very rarely rains used to come. It is under the Chittur Farka of Palakkad district where rain is insufficient always. But if you store all the water, rain is not insufficient. That you can see from the next photos, which is the present condition. See the next photo. This is a lake in the campus which man made. 10 such lakes are here. In our campus now, 10 such lakes are there, big lakes. And if all these lakes are storing for 2 years, we have got water stored. Next one, another view, the lake again. Yes. All man-made lakes. There were no lakes earlier. And funnily enough, I did another strategy. All the earth taken from these lakes were made into bricks. We tested in the engineering college laboratory. That was very good quality brick work. All this have been made into brick, and that brick was used for the hospital construction at that campus. Now we will show a video how the campus will look like now. It is a video taken by a drone so that you can enjoy a view around the campus as an example for a sustainable campus, which is man-made totally. So I feel that you had the feeling of moving around the campus. But all of you, I invite to visit this campus once to realize yourself how a barren land in thousands of acres can be converted to a sustainable, developed area. And our students are lucky to move around this campus because they feel a charm inside the greenery. Now, the next slide. Yes, I wanted to specifically show this slide because my numbers and email ID are there. Any query related to this, other than that is discussed here, you can post to them. Better in WhatsApp because don't unnecessarily call the numbers. Any query related to this. Now we have got almost 10 to 12 minutes now left. That is for question answer session. Any question you can put only in the chat box because I don't want intermingling sounds to interfere. You can put any question on the chat box. I am ready. If I know the answer, I'll share with you. Otherwise, I'll just learn it and tell you the next time. Okay, it is your time now. Please put on the chat box. I can see it here. Is population a problem? It's the first question. That is the only problem. All this pollution, all this resource crunch, all this environment is a novel by Dan Brown by name Inferno. In that novel, the villain is a Jew called Sobrist. Sobrist is saying that the world is cursed because of the population, so I want to reduce the population. So he invented a virus, and at the end of the novel, he lets out into the public that virus. That virus will multiply, just like the coronavirus. That virus will multiply immediately. And Sobrist says that only 1/3 of the population will remain on the earth. Because he says that any virus comes, see in COVID virus, only 10% of the people will be affected by COVID, it seems. 90% will be resistant, they won't be affected. Similarly, 2/3 of the population will not be affected, only 1/3 will remain, and that way the population of the world can be reduced to 1/3, and that will solve all the environmental and ecological problems of the world. That is the story in that novel. That is real also, but what the virus he released is only a story part, but his concept is correct. Population is a major devastating element, and all these environmental issues, sustainability issues have come up only because the population explosion is there. Otherwise, we may not have thought about this now. Any other questions, sir? Can you say about the evolution of sustainability? Evolution of sustainability development or sustainability? Evolution of sustainability means how a thing can evolve as sustainable. That is evolution of sustainability. A thing evolve as sustainable if it can have a slow and steady growth. Say, for example, the slowest growing tree in the world is what is called sequoia. Sequoia tree is not in India. It's a US tree. It's available in the American continent. The sequoia tree, I think it is mostly in South America. Sequoia tree has got a lifespan of nearly 4,000 years, longest living tree. But it grows very slowly, not even an inch per year. If it grows an inch per year, it will become 4,000 inches. So it's very slow growing. But which is the fastest growing plant? Mushroom. Mushroom grows very fast. Some mushrooms do come up even to 1 meter height, sometimes very rarely. Some days maybe 20, 30 centimeters. But within a day or two, it will perish. So sustainability always invites slow growth, slow and steady growth without harming the environment. That is what is required. Then the next question is the environment itself produces sustainability? Yes. If there is no anthropogenic interference, that is human interference, the nature will find its own way to grow. Say, for example, in a forest, you are not going and planting the trees there. The forest is dense with trees because the trees have got their own multiplying mechanism. So the nature has got its own multiplying mechanism, its own control mechanism. Say, for example, some organizations are born to control some other organization, some other organisms. So, for example, snakes are supposed to control frogs. Frogs are supposed to control mosquitoes. So when snakes are killed, frogs will grow. So mosquitoes will vanish. Or if frogs are not there, snakes will die because snakes won't get food. Like that, everything is intertwined. So nature has got its own network system. These things we'll be discussing later. Then lack of self-awareness is a major issue even in developed cities. How can we enhance the civic sense of each and every citizen to develop sustainable environment? In highly developed countries like Switzerland, Germany, sustainability is a very prominent thing. I've read a small bite by Ratan Tata, which has written that he once went to a hotel in Germany with some of his friends. They took lavish food, and after finishing their food, what is the Indian custom? The waste they will put in the plate and they get up. When they got up, immediately an old lady who was taking food nearby asked them, "You sit down there, take the entire food, and then only get up. Otherwise, I'll call the police." Because in their custom, wasting the food is a criminal offense. The police can come and arrest. And he says they sat down again, took the food, and then only left. See the culture. So culture can be imposed by punishment also, or in country like Switzerland by awareness. So both are possible by control mechanism, by creating awareness. Both way it is possible. So civic sense will not come by itself, either by compulsion or by option. Is population a problem? Can we tap it for the future of India? Now India having the most youth population in the world, so we have some advantage over the other countries facing an educated population. Country like Canada gives maximum support to the parents and having more kids. Yes, that is a better option. We send them all to other countries. India cannot accommodate that much. So India is having excessive population. Most of the Western people don't prefer to have more children. Except in the Middle East Asia, the number of offsprings for people are very less because delivering a child, taking care of the child, grooming the child, growing the child, many of the parents don't like to have in the West. Even one child is a luxury for many of them. So India doesn't have such a concern. And in India, especially women feel proud that they are the mother of so many children. In some of the countries like Germany, if you are having more number of children, you are given awards. But such people are not available. But in India, such an award is, say, my grandmother was having 10 children. So if such award is given, I think I've heard about people having 15, 16 children like that. So Indian culture favors that. So we are having more children. And I think they can go to other countries and we can spare the manpower. Okay. So feedback link, you can share the feedback link now. Prabha, you can give the feedback link so that we can get the attendance and feedback. Then, so what are the challenges in achieving sustainable development? First challenge is awareness. If human beings
Sir,
are
feedback
well aware,
idav.
feedback,
Sir, feedback
you
link
will be
attendance link കൂടെ
giving what?
ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ഇടുന്നുണ്ടാവും സർ ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ഇടാം ഓക്കെ സർ
Okay, in the group you will be giving. Okay. But it is
yes
better
sir
to give it here so that you know that people are present here. It is better the feedback form you can give here so that they have to wait here till the end. That will be the better thing. Okay.
yes sir അതെന്താണെന്നറിയോ
Put
അതിൽ
it
സർ
here
ഇമെയിൽ ഐ ഡിയുടെ
instead
കാര്യം
of
കൂടെ
putting in the WhatsApp group. Okay.
അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് സർ ഓക്കെ
Anyway, next session onwards, better put the link here
ഓക്കെ സർ ഓക്കെ
so that
ഞാൻ
we can
പ്രിപ്പയർ
ensure that they are all here in this session.
ഓക്കെ സർ ഇത് പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്ത് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട് ഇത് കഴിഞ്ഞ
Yeah, you can prepare and put it here itself. No problem.
ഓക്കെ സർ ഓക്കെ
Okay, you can copy that link out here in the chat box. Put
ഓക്കെ
in the
സർ
chat box. It's almost 3-4 minutes more. Put in the chat box, they'll reply it.
ഓക്കെ സർ ഓക്കെ
Sir, I have a request.
Even after the presentation is over, Yes,
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have a request here. The participants who
yes,
have participated for the FDP here, I will email the link of the WhatsApp group to them, the invitation, so they can join the WhatsApp group. There are 113 people who registered for it, but only 68 to 70 have joined the WhatsApp group, the Training Sustainable Engineering group. So I will email it to all of them. It will be
right,
good if they can join the so your communication will be much easier
right.
because we have 11 more classes left.
Okay, okay. 11 more classes left, and we insist on only 75% attendance for giving the certificate. So
Okay.
if one class is missed, it's not a big issue. We can send this recording to them. Only
Okay.
thing is, send this recording to them saying that when they come in the next class, they should learn this and come. And
Okay.
the assignment also
Okay.
they have to do.
Okay. And see, if they join the WhatsApp group, it will be easy for us to circulate the link, the joining link.
Right, 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 right. Let them join. Everybody should join
Okay.
the WhatsApp group. You can send the group invitation.
Sure, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
No other questions are there? We have some more time left, I think. How many minutes left? Only 2 minutes left. But any question you can just give. I think some people have left also. Anyway, we should have a record of who are attending. And attendance we have to be very strict about. So that link is now posted here. You can give in the feedback form.
Yes, sir.
So your
External
attendance will be.
participants are requested to
Yeah.
fill this link, sir. Yeah.
So there is another question from Baby Tessie. Which among the MDGs is more important? MDG stands for Millennium Development Goals. That is going to be another session I will discuss there. MDG is going to be there in one module in detail. So I will discuss there what is MDG, what are its implications, and which is more important. So that I won't discuss here. I will discuss in that session because some people are also there for that. Okay, so now it is, our time is up. I'm leaving,
Hello.
but others leave only after that feedback form is completed.
Sir, ഞാനിത് ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ
So
വന്നിട്ട്
thank you all for joining this session. Okay,
ഓക്കെ സർ
okay, okay. Then I'm just leaving. Thank you all. Good night.
Prabha ma'am. Prabha ma'am. Prabha ma'am, are you there?
പറയൂ മാം പറയും
Okay. അത് ആ ഫോമിലെ ഡെസിഗ്നേഷൻ ഫീൽഡ് സെറ്റ് എസ് നമ്പർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടൊരു ഇത് വരുന്നുണ്ട് മാം. അപ്പൊ അതിന്റെ അത് വൺ ഓഫ് ദ പാർട്ടിസിപ്പന്റ് ഹാസ് പോസ്റ്റഡ് ഹിയർ. അപ്പൊ അതിന്റെ ഇത് മാറ്റേണ്ടി വരും.
ഓക്കെ
ടെക്സ്റ്റ് എന്നുള്ളതാക്കേണ്ടി വരും.
ഞാൻ നോക്കിയിട്ട് ചെയ്യാം മാം. ഓക്കെ എനിവേ ഞാൻ പുതിയൊരു ഇത് ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ഇടാം മാം. ഓക്കെ
Okay, അല്ല ഇതൊന്ന് ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്താൽ മതി. So that if somebody is filling now, if we make a change in our form, they'll be automatically able to do it.
ഓക്കെ മാം. ലെറ്റ് മീ സീ.
So participants, you can